This is Colorado State wide receiver Tory Horton.
I think if he wasn't coming off this knee injury, there would be a little bit more hype for him in the third round. And I can see him actually going in the third round despite not a ton of buzz. Just look back at 2023 when he was fully healthy, averaged 95 yards per game on just 11.8 yards per catch. The reason why is because they kept giving him looks underneath where he can use that speed after the catch. In the NFL, I hope they give him more deep routes because I think I see the speed 4.41 at the 40. He's actually got some nice size. It's a nice combination to be targeting inside the top 100.
Tory Horton's such a fascinating one because, as you said, he's going to be remaining 22 years of age until November. He had season-ending knee surgery, but it's like an unspecified injury. But he was then able to participate in the NFL Combine. So you would like to think like the health is not going to be an issue for these NFL teams. What stood out to me is that he can turn on a dime on outside breaking routes. Some sweet, sweet turns at the top of his pattern to break away from defensive backs on top of it. And I hear what you're saying about not the runway routes per se, but they got him on a whole bunch of underneath crossing routes, some
Yep.
mesh patterns, those types of things. He definitely has some underlying metrics that point out some really good force missed tackles numbers. In 2023, as you mentioned, when it was the second year he went over 1,100 yards, he had 21 force missed tackles. Almost none of those, in my eyes, were with physicality. Like that
Mm-hmm.
might not be the part of his game, but in tight spaces, he really has like this, yes, lateral quickness to him that can make an oncoming defender miss.
Yeah, you see that on those like little shallow crosses and the mesh concept in particular, where he can just get his foot in the dirt and then head up towards the first down marker. And he's 6'2.5", 196 pounds, so he might be able to shed a couple tackles based off of his size. In today's age, like that's
He
actually
looked
kind of
so
bigger,
thin out there. I was even shocked by 196 when
right?
I went back and watched it.
Right. Yeah. So hopefully he can put on a little bit more weight. But I just think the way that they used him, I think I would just like to see if could this guy run a post route? Could he run a big corner route? Could he run the vertical plane in general? Because we didn't see that a ton at Colorado State. But most guys that are 6'3" almost with 4.41 speed, that's how they use them. And to me, I saw more of a straight line player. There's a couple, definitely some missed tackles underneath. But this is like the part of the projection that you can kind of try to envision with Tory Horton. So like my comps and like this is based on like height, weight, speed, not how they use them at Colorado State. Like Darius Slayton, Tez Walker, and
Hmm,
these are the kind of ranges that they go in, and those are like all vertical plane guys. So maybe you see
interesting.
them like totally different here, but like
I
to me, when
do.
I'm just like looking at like the straight line speed that I saw with that size profile, I would like to see him more as a vertical based player instead of like all this shallow stuff.
Yeah, interesting. 19 of his 38 targets this past season were out of the slot. To me, part of that was we know our quarterback isn't very good, and the easiest way to get him the football is as close to the quarterback as
Correct.
possible. And his ADOT this year was actually the highest it's been since his first season of college football. Which, by the way, he's a 5-year player. Spent his first 2 years at Nevada, these last 3 years at Colorado State at 13 and a half, and he was wide open for a few
Hmm.
of these downfield shots that he was just totally missed on. I will add he also dropped a terrible 65-yard touchdown versus Boise State too. But yeah, I guess we just see him very differently. I comped him to a whole bunch of route runners because to me, like that's where his game is again creating separation on these tight, almost turn on a dime looks. And like the low end of that is what we all thought like Dante Pettis is or could be. That's I saw a lot of similarities in their route running. And then if you really want to shoot for the ceiling, it's your favorite player in the league, Deontay Johnson. I like we really saw this player very differently, which is fascinating.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I think like kind of meeting in the middle there. I thought he was really good against zone coverage. Like he caught a bunch of little quick hitting zone hitches
Yep.
and all those crossing routes we're talking about. Like a lot of times, those are against zone coverage where you have to have a little bit of a feel when to like accelerate, when to kind of settle in. I thought that he did a good job with that, which is kind of beating us in the middle. Yeah. In my notes though, like I thought he played a little bit more upright than kind of what some of the guys that you're talking about. But we'll see. And you just never know with this knee injury too. It sounds like it's not going to be that severe, like you said, just because he was able to test. But assuming like that's not going to like really hold him back long term, like I just want to see this guy run because there's
Hmm.
glimpses where when he's running, he's like really running to me. But I think that there's enough, just like the baseline of like feeling good in zone, having some size, having some speed, having plenty of production here. Like to me, this is a guy where you're not projecting him as a starter, but I think you can easily turn this guy into a starter. And I think they just probably going to go in round 3.
Yeah. Round three Seems like a really nice target area for him. The words I just kept using was nimble. There are two spots I do want to bring up though. I don't think there's really any physicality to his game, and I see him more as like a movement Z that you give these free releases to, that you can get these runways to on top of it. He even lost a contested target down the field against Utah State that was a true like 50-50 ball, and it just turned into an interception because he lost that. And then I do want to bring up that really over the last 2 years, he's almost strictly lined up at right wide receiver or in the slot and hasn't really worked at the left wide receiver spot. He has 10 snaps in total over the last 2 years as a left wide receiver. And we see this a lot with certain offenses and these wide receivers entering the league where they
Yeah.
master, footwork and releases and everything from one side of the field and haven't done it on the other side. Sometimes it's really easy for them to transition into that, and sometimes it's not. There are certainly cases on both sides. You can look at the Ole Miss offenses, and you can look all the way down to like Kevin White at West Virginia, for example. So I don't think this is going to be an issue, but I do want to point that out that he has certainly mastered that one spot in alignment, but he's going to be asked to move around, I think, a lot more in the NFL.
Yeah, you see this a lot in college, like some of these like no huddle based offenses where you see a
Yep.
lot more in college and stuff. Like they don't have time to like get you structured and then go back to the other side of the field. Like they really want to simple
Yep.
this thing down so they can run a bunch of plays. And like maybe that's going to be something that Horton has to have an adjustment period to. But yeah, you never like to see that. You want versatility. You want to have a good feel for both sides. But sometimes you just like land in a kind of interesting college based offense, and there's just going to be a little bit of a transition period.
It wouldn't shock me at all if he is selected ahead of maybe some bigger names that we've discussed on the channel, and like a front office, an organization is really attracted to Tory Horton, and he might surprise some people on draft
Yeah,
weekend. All
I
right,
like that.
that's going to do it. Once again, so many prospect profiles on the channel, more wide receivers, running backs, tight ends, quarterbacks. We have it all here. So hit that subscribe button. If you're new around here, leave a thumbs up, and we'll check you out in the next one. See ya.